Hi, I'm Jenny Backus, Acting Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs here at HHS and the co-chair of our Open Government Committee. Thanks for joining us today. It's a very special day and a very special time here at HHS. Today's the day we're unveiling our Open Government Plan, and we're kicking it off with this webcast to help explain what all of these Open Government Plan means to you and how you can benefit from it. Open government is nothing new to this administration, and at HHS we're actually moving to the next level by expanding opportunities for sharing data with the public, for increasing public participation in all of our HHS activities, and for collaboration both here at HHS and across the world, especially through the use of new information and communications technologies, things like these webcasts. If you have a question for one of our guests today regarding our Open Government Plan or our strategy for doing these kinds of things, email us right here in the studio at HHS Studio, right here in the HHS Studio at hhs.gov. Let me do that again, hhs.studio at hhs.gov. Please be brief and just let us know where you're from. We've been gathering questions all week as well. So earlier this week, we asked to get questions from you, and we're going to have a conversation today to answer some of them. But before we do that, I'd like to introduce you to our two panelists. Todd Park is my co-chair on the Open Government Committee. He is the Chief Technology Officer for HHS. And Josh Sharfstein is the Principal Deputy Commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration here at HHS and a big innovator on open government. He's been doing some great things with the team at FDA. So we want to start off the discussion, but first I want to tell you all that you can also read our Open Government Plan on our website, which is hhs.gov/open. And it's very easy to find. We've really tried to make it very user-friendly with charts and graphs. And what is also is a dynamic document, so we want you to give us your feedback on it. But first, let's start off the discussion with Todd. So Todd, the President put out an announcement today. Robert Gibbs talked about it at the press briefing. What is the open government sort of idea? Why is the administration so behind it? Why is HHS so excited about it?
Yes. Well, as you know, Jenny, right after he was inaugurated, one of the first things the President did was issue a call for more openness in government. And what he meant by that was a government that's more transparent, more participatory, and more collaborative. Transparency means publishing data, government data, for the public, so the public can hold us accountable for what we do, and data that generates multiple kinds of new social benefits. Participation is about, in the words of the President, accessing expertise of citizens across society to engage citizens in the work of government, to help us be more efficient and effective. And collaboration is about the government working well with itself across different branches of government, federal, state, local, and working well with folks outside government in an all-hands-on-deck spirit of commonwealth, to advance the ball on key social issues. And so when the President calls for more open government, he's talking about a government that actually adheres better to these principles of transparency, participation, and collaboration. It's above all a government that in doing so works better. It's not just openness for openness' sake. It's actually openness in the name of delivering better results to the American people. And that's actually why we're so thrilled at HHS to embrace it, not just for the sake of openness, but because we actually passionately believe that an HHS that's more transparent, participatory, and collaborative is an HHS that will deliver ever better results against our mission of improving the health and welfare of the American people.
Great. Now, what are some ways, through this plan or through this process that the public can engage?
Oh, there are many, many ways. And we need all the help we can get. First, actually, the plan that we're publishing today, which has been the result of a ton of very hard work by folks across HHS and a lot of public input, is just the beginning of our open government journey. It's a plan that we very much want to get a lot of public feedback on. So we would really encourage folks to go to our Open Government webpage, check out our plan. There are multiple places to comment throughout the plan and help us improve it, help us make it better. Because it's a plan we continue to want to iterate over time and update over time. The plan also actually lays out, along with the OpenGov website overall, a whole series of ways the public can actually engage in the different activities of HHS. So there are more traditional ways, these federal advisory committees that we've set up, over 200 on various topics, which are open to the public and which we want the public to engage in and give us their feedback on a whole host of important issues. There are more cutting-edge ways, like our presences on Facebook and Twitter and social media, which provides a Web 2.0-ish way for people to engage. And then there are even newer ways. For example, one of the things that's actually launching this week in terms of OpenGov HHS is in collaboration with the Sunlight Foundation. We're launching under the Design for America competition that they're running a first ever HHS application challenge for best interactive visualization of community health data. So if you're a developer and you have a hankering to help improve the health of the United States, go check out our section of Design for America and scrub in and see what you can do. But actually go to our OpenGov website, and there's actually an inventory under the Get Involved section of the website of all the different ways that folks can plug into and participate in the work of HHS.
Now, one of the other things that we're going to talk about, and I want to bring Josh in a second here around this topic, is HHS, big agency, lots of different people, generates tons of information every day. How did you go about and what was the thinking behind some of the data that you're featuring on the site, and why did you choose to highlight that kind of data versus all the other information that HHS puts out?
Yeah. Well, so I just joined HHS 6 months ago, and I was just absolutely stunned, like everyone is when they first join, at the just massive breadth and depth of the information that we have across the Food and Drug Administration, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, the National Institutes of Health, et cetera. And so it presents a crisis of overwhelming opportunity. How can you possibly sort through all that and figure out what to do? So what we actually decided to do was we decided to do a number of things. First of all, really align our data release strategy against the strategic priorities of the department around the transformation of healthcare, around prevention and wellness, around the advancement of research and cures and improvement in the quality of healthcare, around early childhood health and development, around care for seniors. And against those priorities, we said, okay, well, what data can we actually put out there that would be super helpful in advancing those priorities? And there are multiple concrete commitments we've made in our plan to do so. The other thing we actually did that I thought was really fruitful was we asked for input from the public on our OpenGov website. And folks were able to come up with a bunch of really great ideas and actually be very articulate about them in ways that were very persuasive. So, for example, just to call one out, Nancy Watzler made a very interesting case on our OpenGov website that we should actually take the food, drug, and medical device recall data that FDA provides and make it downloadable in XML format, basically downloadable in a structured form that people could use to mash up with other data and turn into useful apps. So FDA, under leadership of Dr. Hamburg and Dr. Sharfstein, have in fact committed to do that by the fourth quarter of this fiscal year and third quarter of this calendar year. Which is fantastic. And so,
which in English is like fall of 2010.
Fall of 2010,
yes.
Yeah. One of the other pieces of input that we actually got was from Snowbound in Virginia and from Tommy J, who said, please speak in English.
There you go.
And that's a challenge for us in government, but actually we endeavored to write our entire open government plan in English. We love feedback on whether we succeeded in that as well. But yes, in the fall of this year, we anticipate releasing this super cool structured recall data, which will be very helpful. And that, was one of the ideas. It was from Nancy Watzler. And so one of the other asks that we have for America is to keep those ideas coming, because it really helps us as we face a cornucopia of possible data releases to come up with the ones that the public really wants and the ones that could be most beneficial.
So open government helps with data that the public can look at, but open government strategies have also been helping on how we do business every day in our agencies. And so, Dr. Sharfstein, I'd love to have you describe a little bit about this idea that you guys had, FDA Track.
Sure. FDA Track, which we're releasing today, is a new system for measuring performance at FDA. We are tracking over 100 offices with more than 300 key measures and projects every month. A lot of people don't understand what FDA does, but now they'll be able to go online to our website, which is www.fda.gov, and see the progress that each of our offices is making towards its goals, see the key work that we're doing on behalf of public health, and look at questions like, when we're doing inspections, what are we finding? How many generic drugs are waiting to be reviewed? Are we making the progress we want to make to get quicker identification of contaminated food during outbreaks? All the key projects that we're working on that relate to the public health, our goal is to put them up on FDA track and show the public what we're doing and have them look at our progress, and is very important, I think, for how the public relates to FDA, and very exciting internally also, because the process of putting together these 300 plus measures has involved people across the agency thinking about what they want to accomplish and being prepared to be accountable for it.
Well, I was going to say, in some ways it seems like it's really promoting accountability. So how is this sort of different in terms of performance measures than what you've seen before? I mean, it seems very different from the very little that I know about how we've set them up in the past.
Sure. Accountability is the A in FDA track. T stands for transparency. I think that in the past, agencies have been measured by some broad overall measurements over the course of the whole year. So maybe how many inspections have you done? You know, and then you find out at the end whether you've made it or not. Our measures are monthly, there are many more of them, and they're really targeted to things that we think really matter. So, you know, we'll be looking to see, once we're aware of a problem, how quickly is the public notified? You know, for certain types of problems that the public needs to be notified quickly. And then we'll track that over time, and people will be able to go online and see our progress.
All right, I have a question for both of you. How, so you've worked outside of government. You've worked both inside and outside of government on the state level. How different is this? I mean, I'm not doing this as some way to give us a big pat on the back, but is this different approach than we've seen before? And what are the benefits for, like, the average mom sitting at home trying to figure out, what does this mean for me? Is this just more tech and jargon, or how does this, like, relate to my life? So how different is this, and how does it relate to an everyday person's life? And before we do that, just if you have other questions, hhsstudio@hhs.gov, send them in and we will get your questions. But let's go back. So how different, and how does it relate to my life?
I think it's an incredibly important shift in how we think about government. And I think it's an enormously important part of what the president believes should be what government's all about. I think that over time, government seemed more and more remote to citizens, and is simultaneously facing ever more complicated challenges. I mean, if you think about the kinds of things that HHS is taking on, like helping to transform the healthcare system, helping to combat pandemics, helping to advance food safety, helping to advance the well-being of children and seniors. I mean, these are colossal, incredibly complicated challenges. And I think that, the way I thought about it is that, open government is essential to a 21st century government being able to take on those challenges and lead us as a nation to success. I can't imagine doing any of those things without disseminating information to the public, without actually engaging citizens from all walks of life in the great challenges that they present, without collaborating with academia and businesses and not-for-profits and folks from all over. I think that transparency, participation, collaboration are essential to how our American government should work in the 21st century to improve the health and well-being of the American people, to lead us to a better place. Positioning government as, essentially not a unilateral force that attempts to sort of single-handedly solve all the problems of the world, but rather as a catalytical force, one that helps to mobilize and join up with other powerful forces, the power of our citizenry, to really improve the health of our country. So I actually see it not as yet another thing to do or as some kind of compliance exercise, but something that's fundamental to how an effective government should actually serve the American people in the 21st century.
Now, Josh, I want you to answer that question, but this spurned another one. You run a big, huge agency. What kind of reception did you get to, like, more performance metrics and this, sort of new philosophy of doing things? It's kind of very different, I think, than what's been done before. How is that playing with your employees, and how does that translate to your customers, either the companies you regulate or the people that come to you for more information about drug and food safety?
Well, I think for a long time FDA has been seen as a black box. People don't really understand outside of FDA what goes on inside. And I think that's been a source of some frustration to the employees of FDA, who are justifiably quite proud of the kind of work that they're doing. And I think they really see the potential of a system like FDA Track to show office by office the kind of work that's going on. there's an office deep inside FDA that's really working on helping drug companies produce drugs of higher quality. The actual manufacturing process. There's another office that's working on figuring out ways to do different kinds of tests that can be applied to make sure that they're not contaminants in drugs and food. And now people will be able to watch their progress online, whereas before they might have been just totally hidden behind kind of the curtain of, you know, the bureaucracy. So I think that there's a lot of excitement about this. I think we realize that we're going to be open to questions about our performance, but I think we're ready to do that. There may be some goals that we make that we don't reach, and we'll have to explain why that's the case. But that's part of being an agency in an era of open government. You know, to your earlier question, when I was the health commissioner of Baltimore City, we had a performance management initiative called CityStat, where I had to stand up in front of the mayor and deputy mayor every month, and I was accountable for all the different parts of what the health department did. And there's a lot of work, cities around the country, states around the country, to do this kind of office-by-office management and accountability. And I think that we're trying in doing this at FDA Track to take some of the key lessons from that experience and apply them in an agency that typically has been kind of seen as a black box.
All right. From the public back to some things that other people can do, the forces that you were talking about earlier, to leash the forces to get more than just our government microphones putting out the data and the information that people need to know. Dave has emailed in with a question. David in Virginia. What data mashups, that sounds kind of techy, so you might need to explain that to some people like me. What data mashups would you like to see developers create?
Oh, it's a fantastic question.
First, you have to define the term, data mashup.
Data mashup being basically, take data that we might provide and data that might be available elsewhere and combine them into a beautiful 1 + 1 = 5 type thing. One thing actually I'll talk about, I mean, there are many, as I start to prioritize against our strategic priorities, as we talked about. But one area I want to talk about in particular is the improvement of community health.
And I think that's one of our flagship initiatives.
It's one of our flagship initiatives, exactly, our Open Gov plan. So one of our flagship initiatives is something we're calling the Community Health Data Initiative. I would love actually maybe a catchier name for that, so I actually would like to ask that as well. But we're calling it the Community Health Data Initiative. And the whole idea is it's a public-private collaboration in the best spirit of open government to try to help Americans better understand health in their communities and to help spark and inform action to improve it. Because really all healthcare and health is local, right? If you think about the notion of citizens actually beginning to get a better understanding of what's going on in their community and joining arm in arm to try to do something about it, and having a whole a panoply of that activity happening in communities across the country, it really is a very exciting thing to contemplate, and that's exactly what we're trying to do with the Community Health Data Initiative. And so our approach is actually, again, not for the government to kind of unilaterally go in and basically say to everybody, here's what's going on and here's what you should do in your community, because that just wouldn't work. But rather, for HHS to recognize that we've got a lot of data that actually articulates how we're doing as a country, as states, as counties, with respect to measures like obesity, smoking, with respect to determinants of health and well-being, like access to healthy food, et cetera. And so what we actually are going to do is just very simply take all that data, make sure that it doesn't compromise individual privacy, and release it in a structured, standardized form that is free of charge to the public. And what we're then doing is actually effectively trying to market that data to folks like Dave, who asked the question, and not-for-profits and companies and research organizations, et cetera, to take that data and turn it into super cool applications and mashups and programs that could help citizens gain a better understanding of community health, to help put pressure on decision makers like mayors or county officials or local employers to do something about it, and to help facilitate and improve performance. These applications / mashups could be interactive community health maps to allow me as a citizen without a PhD in health economics to understand health performance in my town versus another town. Ideas people can come up with actually include social networking games. I think Farmville, but for health, that help educate a whole bunch of folks actually on what's going on in terms of community health and how to improve it. Ideas include potentially inserting community health performance data in untraditional venues. Like one idea, actually, from Redfin, which is a real estate website, is to actually put next to the school system some measure of community health performance to help a whole new audience actually understand what's going on with respect to community health, and other ideas along these lines. And so
basically, the government's role is to put the data out there and let the public do with it what they want to do with it. It's not like mandates or anything.
No,
it's
no.
Just
and
putting
in fact,
it out there.
I am 100% confident that the public will actually take our data and come up with vastly more powerful, vastly more innovative, and vastly more uses of it than we could ourselves. And so, Dave, I'm super interested in you scrubbing in on our data and you telling us what you think you can do with it. To help increase awareness of community health and to help spark action to improve it. I can't wait.
Great. Josh, any thoughts on you for like some of the data that you guys are producing or anything new coming down the pike for you on that front, sort of post-FDA track?
Well, one of the things we're very interested in, our website has set up an email address for comments because FDA track is really just getting started. And we're interested in people looking at the measures that we're setting for ourselves, telling us what they think, suggesting other measures. We're going to go through a period where we're kind of honing this so we can make it as effective as possible for the various goals that we have. As you know, and I think is also in the Open Government Plan, we also have a transparency initiative at FDA, and we've gotten well over 1,000 comments on the FDA transparency blog. And we're looking at, we've launched FDA Basics, which is a website that explains a lot about what the agency does. And we're looking at a whole range of other potential steps on transparency down the road.
Well, actually, this leads into this question that we just got from Helen from Washington, from both of you, Washington, D.C. She says, are there any efforts being put into place to improve the ease of finding relevant information quickly? And are web analytics being captured for these efforts also? Will this information be shared with the public as improvements are made? So as we present information to the public, whether what an office does or a bunch of data, what's our philosophy and thinking behind that? And I guess I'll start with you, and then I'll go to you, Josh.
Yes. So it's a fantastic question with multiple different dimensions, and so I'll address at least a couple of them. So one is that on our Open Government website, we've actually, among other things, put a compendium of all the data that we have that we're making publicly available for download, which is also actually mirrored on the government's overall data.gov site. And so it's a much easier way for people to actually find stuff that could be cool and useful. And we're actually incredibly interested in encouraging the use of that data and actually trying to get a sense of what people are finding valuable about our data and what we should do to correct the data that we're putting out there and make it easier to use, and what additional data we could put out there that would be most valuable. And so we will actually be subsequently, as part of Open Gov Plan, on our Open Gov website, putting places for people to voluntarily tell us, actually, what they're doing with our data. Another place for people to tell us the stuff in our data that needs to be fixed for it to actually be more usable. And furthermore, through things like the Community Health Data Initiative, things like the Design for America Challenge for best visualization of community health, we're trying to also put proactive challenges out there and proactive mechanisms out there to really market the data and get people to plug into it and turn it into useful stuff. But we'd love any additional ideas people have. Please post them in our Open Gov Plan comment sections about how to act along the lines that Helen was just talking about.
And just so folks know, too, we also work very hard in the Public Affairs Office to generate metrics each week. I know, Josh, I'm going to come to you, and I know you can talk about that at FDA, too, but we really try to look at the metrics of who's looking at what site, what they're clicking it on, and we try to use that as ways to reorganize our websites and our communications with you guys. So taking off my public affairs hat, going back to my moderator hat. Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about what you've been doing at FDA to sort of try to use web analytics and metrics and things like that to get the information out to people?
Sure. I also want to emphasize Todd's point that people may not know when they're starting with a question that the data is at FDA, and it really is the value of sites like data.gov and some of these other overall arching sites that really help people find where the data may be kept in the federal government. One of the things that we think is very important is every time people come to our site, to give them the opportunity to tell us they're looking for something if they're having trouble finding it, and then we can follow up with them and do that. And we've gotten thousands of requests on the FDA Basic site for more basic information about the agency that we're working through and making a lot more information available. And to your point, Jenny, there's no question. We want to know where people are on our site, what they're doing, where is it working, and where is it not working, so that we can continually improve.
Great. We have a bunch more questions, and we're running we're getting short on time, so I'm going to try to whip through them. Okay. Chris and Todd, maybe you want to take this one, because I know you were involved with the Secretary and a lot of stuff earlier this week. Chris from Denver says, will the implementation of the healthcare bills be available in a timely manner via open government?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, actually, the Secretary said to us earlier this week that this could not be a more perfect time to roll out our Open Gov plan, because it's very important to her to communicate that as HHS takes on the most ambitious agenda in its history, that we are going to change how we do business along the lines of open government, such that we are maximally efficient and effective, transparent, participatory, and collaborative in how we roll with health reform. And so major streams of update to our Open Gov plan will flow from our implementation work on health reform. And that'll be stuff that folks will see in future releases of our plan.
Great. Lynn from St. Louis wants to know, and I'm going to have you answer it, and I'll answer it a little bit with my public affairs hat. Yeah. How do you plan, and Josh, jump in here too if it's relevant to FDA. Lynn's from St. Louis, and she wants to know, how do you plan to inform the general public about open government? Mm-hmm. Will you somehow get this on the news talk shows to let people know about the very simple things that you're promoting in the plan, like mm-hmm. Hospital Compare and Nursing Home Compare, which mm-hmm. are two programs that CMS, who's also doing a very good job on open government, has had for a couple of years now, I think.
Absolutely, yes. So we're going to do a bunch of different things in addition to our OpenGov website, in addition to a whole series of OpenGov launch events we'll be doing around the different initiatives that our plan commits us to do, in addition to doing social media-powered outreach, which we're really pushing hard on. I'd actually love to get additional ideas from the public on how to do this, because we really want input from the public. We really want to engage the public in the work of open government, because that's the whole point. And I think a critical dimension of that is, how do we get the word out to more and more people? And we'll just really love creative ideas from the public with respect to how to do that.
One thing I do want to tell you about from the public affairs side is, we think not only is it really important to reach out to the public and get your input, like all the great questions we're getting today and that we got over the past couple of days, but also we really think it's important to educate and keep our employees involved, because yes. This plan came from our employees. It came from our employees at HHS. It came from the employees at FDA. And so we've also been doing a lot of internal communication to get buy-in and really get people committed to sort of the philosophy of open government here at HHS. So we're both going to be doing an internal communications process, constantly looking for feedback internally and also externally. And I know, Josh, you've been doing some of that at FDA too.
Yes, absolutely. We're doing that. And on the other point, we're looking for many different ways of getting this out. We communicate a lot to the medical community, and we have pilots, for example, to get information right to people's handheld devices as close to possible at the point of care. So when there's information that we have at FDA that we want people to use or to have access to for in the healthcare setting, they have it as quickly as possible.
Well, we're getting right down to the end. I just want to do a shout out, partly because you're from Baltimore, but Alan from Baltimore said, a small group of us have been working on open source projects, health-related projects. How do we become more involved? So as we close out, how do people become more involved in this process, and how long is it going to go on? And
absolutely.
Give me your last closing thoughts.
Yeah. Well, one of the most important things that I think we need to say today is that the debut of our Open Gov plan is just the beginning of a eternal journey toward more and more open government. I really think of open government as a journey, not a destination. I think it's something we can get better and better at over time. And we need folks across the country to plug in. And so I'd really encourage folks who want to get involved to come to our OpenGov website. And the OpenGov plan provides a nice architecture of the different things we're doing. And if you want to help with a given thing, then in the comment section basically say, sign me up to do X and do Y. And we will follow up with you. I mean, I can tell you, I read every single one of the comments and ideas that we got during our comment period before the publication of our plan. They were just terrific. They were just terrific. And not all of them are actually in our plan, but we are looking at all of them for future iterations of our plan. And we want to get more ideas and to get more help. So please tell us that you're ready and willing to help at our OpenGov website.
Anything else, Josh? Last words?
Well, we have a few places on the FDA website, the transparency blog. We'd love to get as many comments and input as we can, and we're definitely looking at it and taking steps based on what we hear. I think for us the principle is that, we're a public health agency, and the word public is in public health. We've got to really work for the people that we're trying to protect at FDA, and we want to do that in a way that is collaborative and makes us as effective an agency as possible.
Well, that's great. And I'm sorry we didn't get to all your questions. Ned, you have a good one here. I'm going to make Todd answer it on his next blog post. But I want to thank you all for emailing in today and for all the emails that you've sent all along the way in this process, both to FDA and to HHS. We hope you got some of your questions answered. We are going to, in the spirit of openness and understanding that not everybody has this hour between 1 and 2 free today, are also going to make it available on demand shortly. So you can go to our website, hhs.gov/open, and look for the icon that will take you to this and to other future Open Government webcasts. We'll be doing more of these. We hope you join in the discussion to help us have a more open government. I'm Jenny Backus, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.